talking about what makes you successful in life, relationships, and business. It's Jump, Pivot, and Roll with Shannon Stiles and Rachel Murphy.
Do you find time becomes an issue when it comes to preparing healthy meals for your family? Or maybe you woke up one day to realize that the kids are grown up and gone and you haven't figured out how to scale down the menu for yourself. Well, today's guest is a speaker, author, and married mother of 4. She's also the host of Feed Your Family Tonight podcast and has a weekly cooking demo on Cake TV's Good Morning Kansas. Welcome to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. I'm Shannon Stiles.
And I'm Rachel Murphy.
Please welcome Marie Feibach to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Shannon and Rachel. It is a joy to be here with you today.
Good afternoon, I guess.
No, not morning.
Usually it's morning when we do shows, so good afternoon. And, you know, I think Rachel wants to kick us off with the first question because she started already before we even went live.
Well,
Go ahead, Rach.
I did because I've been so excited to have Marie come and join us. I've been trying to get her in here for like 2 months. But tell us about your journey. What got you started on this?
Well, you know, my journey has been a winding path. Since I was very young, I have always known that there has been a business in me, and I have had a side hustle of one kind or another probably most of my life. Many years ago, I had a business called Molly Mays where I sewed tutus and then these little couture baby leg warmers with tutus at the bottom and hair puffs and everything to match. And I did that for a while. I've sewn poodle skirts. But in 2017, I was working in a contract job, a sales job, and I knew that the contract was going to be ending. And so I took an entrepreneurship class, and the leader of that class walked us through finding our best business idea. And she said, go with what people are asking you about and what you know. And at that time, my twins were playing competitive soccer, and I was sitting on the sidelines with all these moms who said, we're going to hit the drive-thru, we're going to go home and feed the family, do the homework, put the kids in the bath, and get them to bed. And I was doing all of those same things except for hitting the drive-thru. And they were asking me how I managed to not hit the drive-thru. And so I kind of reverse engineered what I was doing, and that became the seeds of what is now Feed Your Family Tonight.
That is so cool.
I love that. And, you know, I have to ask you, how scary was it to actually do that?
Well, I'm pretty bold and brazen, and I'm one of those people where I don't mind failing. So I'm going to just start, and if it doesn't work, I'll pivot and I'll move on to the next thing. So you have those butterflies that are the good butterflies that kind of give you enough gumption to do what you need to do. And the ones that are really scary, I just kind of ignore and I plug through. It's how I've been my whole life. I'm an ambitious girl and I'm not afraid to try new things.
Love that. We absolutely, you are speaking our language because, you know, we're always talking about how the fact that failure is not failing, not doing and getting up, that's failing. But that's so cool that you made it through that.
Well, I agree, Rachel. Failing is the way you learn lessons and can move on to the next thing.
So when you started your journey, it was just a dream. And I think that there are many people out there that have this dream, right, of doing something else. Maybe it's not a cooking show, maybe it's not a cooking podcast, or it's not the organization that you do or insurance or whatever, but you have some type of dream, right? So the listeners that are listening right now, what would you say to them about how would you guide them to stop dreaming and make it a reality? Reality, yes.
Well, you know, here's the thing is, you have to say, where do I want to be? And then you have to peel back step by step of what it's going to take to get there. You know, I have a big, hairy dream of being on Food Network, and I am working step by step closer to that. So the work that I do with Cake TV is just one step closer to getting onto a bigger network, doing more and more food TV. But I couldn't get my work on Cake TV if I hadn't have started my food blog and if I hadn't have written my first cookbook. So you just start peeling back layer by layer and you take that first step.
I love that because it's almost like you're creating your dream the same way you make a meal. You're taking all these steps and putting in all these things,
Ingredients.
that are eventually, exactly, that are eventually going to create that dream that you desire to do.
Well, I love that
that's
food
great.
analogy.
That is
speaking
a
my
great
language
analogy,
now.
exactly.
Because it is. I mean, you can't make a fancy dinner unless you chop the onion first.
Right.
And you've got to go to the grocery store to buy the onion, and you have to look at the recipe before you go to the grocery store.
That's good. And when you're chopping the onion, there's usually going to be some tears.
Well, don't you know it?
I think that it starts even before that, because I think you have to make a list. And it sounds like that's what you do, is you set your goals and you know your milestones and when you want to do something by a certain time. Did you actually sit down and create that list of your goals and put the milestones on it and by what time?
I can't say that I've done that. What I've done is I have my big goal, and I look at what is in front of me. What opportunities can I take now that will get me one step closer to the goal? So I don't set out all of my steps, but I set out, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do this quarter? And honestly, in entrepreneurship at the stage that I'm at, looking much beyond a quarter is just a pipe dream, because things happen so fast and things change so fast.
Yeah,
You're right.
That's a good point.
You're right. Especially, early in the game, I think it's really important to have that big goal, though, because has it always been the Food Network?
It kind of
that
has.
been?
I have wanted to do food TV for most of my life. I mean, since I watched The Frugal Gourmet on KPTS when I was like 7, I was like, that food TV stuff looks kind of fun. And it's funny how it took me 30 years to get to that place where I'm really pursuing that goal. But it's always been in me.
That's really neat. I love that you are living something that you had a desire to do as a kid, because I think a lot of times when we're young, I wanted to be a ballet dancer. I have 2 left feet, so not going to happen.
Yeah, you and I, that coordination thing just isn't there.
We don't have that. But I love that you knew at such a young age and you followed those steps to get you there. I think that's just awesome.
Well, I love it. It was dormant for a while, though. I want to be honest with the listeners, is that when I was in high school and college, that wasn't part of what I was thinking in my future. And then I started having my children, and my children started getting older, and I kind of hit that magic window where I realized that I still have a lot of life to live, and it's time for me to start doing something for me. And that's when my contract job was ending, and it was time to say, okay, what's next? And so that was a really exciting time when I decided that, it's time for me to look at what I want to do for the next season.
I love that. So
I do too.
Let's get down to it. All right. I am not a cook. I do really good trying
She
occasionally.
does, and when she makes something, like when she decides I'm going to make this, it is
pretty delicious.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Right. But I come up with a lot of excuses, and I'm going to be pretty transparent. I can do it. I just choose not to, and I choose to make excuses. But with the holidays coming up, I think that I'm not going to be able to keep making those excuses, right? And we just get busier and busier during the holidays. There are more things put on your table. What do you recommend? Do you have some tips for our listeners and myself to get us through these holidays?
I have a lot of tips for the holidays. I actually have a whole holiday planning guide. It's at feedsyourfamilytonight.com/holiday. And if you're interested in it, you can get it there. One of my biggest thing for the holidays is to start with your intentions, because there are so many things that can distract us in the holidays that I want you to sit down before the holidays even start and think about what is important to me and what is important to my family. Is a home-cooked meal most important, or is time with my family more important? And maybe you're going to outsource some of your parts of your meal so that you can focus more on your time with your family. So the first tip is focus on what is important and choose what's important before the holidays get here. The second thing is I really encourage people to do something called a pre-holiday shopping trip. And this is where in early December, you go and you buy all of your staples that will get you through until the middle of January. So that when you're shopping for gifts and when you're preparing your big family meals, you're not having to think about things like toilet paper and shampoo and deodorant and canned goods. So look at the meals that you like to make that time of year. Buy all of the non-perishable ingredients for those meals. So stock up on your pasta and your canned tomatoes and your beans and whatever you're going to be fixing for your fancy meals and your everyday meals through that season, and do a big shopping trip. It's going to take a couple of stores. For me, I'm going to hit a big box store like Costco or Sam's. I'm probably going to hit 1 or 2 grocery stores, but I'm going to get everything stocked up so that when I am shopping during that holiday season, I'm focusing on fresh ingredients, and I don't have to be in the busy stores when everybody else is stocking up. It gives me a lot of brain space. There's something really grounded about knowing that you have your staples with you and all you have to do is add the little pieces, and it's going to help you be a better cook and have a little more peace in the season.
God, I love that. I love
You're
that.
loving everything today.
I am. Well, because she's speaking to me, because
Yeah.
unlike Shannon, who, she does cook some, I cook most of the things that we eat, and I really enjoy it. Now, I will be honest and say I'm terrible at following a recipe because I just like to cook and I like to taste. And so, when people are like, well, how did you make that? I usually can't tell them exactly how I made it. I just
But she
made
will
it.
show you.
I will show you. But I love that because I was that person that overdid it. Like, it had to be grand. It had to be. And I'm going to be honest, my family was ready to kill me by the end of the season because I was so stressed out trying to do all the things. And it wasn't just for my little family. We usually had 20 to 25 people showing up, and I had to do it all. If you wanted to bring something, you could bring deviled eggs. And girl, I was miserable. The dinner was going on, but when it was over. So I love how you just make it so simple and how you're thinking ahead so that you can actually enjoy. And I did scale back. I did put myself in check. But I love how you make it so simple. I love simple. And you do that. And you've got a planner you've put together.
I do. I have a holiday planner that goes through Thanksgiving 101 and how to holiday shop. It gets even into things like, what donations are you going to give during the holiday season? And are you going to send Christmas cards? Who are you giving gifts to? And then you take who you're giving gifts to and you assign a budget to them so that you stick within your budget. And then the magic happens when you write down what gifts you want to give each person and where you can buy those gifts. Then you put it all onto one sheet, and you're only going to the website once. And your mailman and your husband and your cousin might all be at the same store, but you're saving money because you're only paying for shipping once. You're saving time because it's all in one consolidated trip. And it's going to help you be so much more organized. And December's going to hit, and you're going to be like, I can sit back and enjoy my time with my family rather than feeling frazzled. And that's what I want for people.
Wow.
You just lost me when you said the word budget.
Yeah.
I mean,
not
everything
good
went
with a budget.
crazy. And no, I'm kidding. That sounds phenomenal, and it sounds like a great tool that so many people try to create, but then they get sidetracked or
Frustrated, overwhelmed.
Yeah, you're right.
And you've taken all that out of it.
So I want to go back to your first tip, and that is to be intentional,
Yes.
right? I love that you say that because so many people lose like Thanksgiving, for example. They lose the meaning behind it, and they get so caught up into, oh, I have to have everything perfect. We have to have the decorations perfect. We have to have the meal perfect. If it's not perfect, it's running the whole time, and they forget it's about being there and being together and being thankful for all of the blessings that we have. But my favorite tip that you've shared so far, is you can order out.
And there's nothing wrong in ordering out. As a matter of fact, there's ways to outsource. And I highly recommend outsourcing at least one course. And outsourcing may be asking the person who's really good at baking pies to bring the pies because they're coming. Or it might be buying a pie kit. A lot of bakeries right now are giving you all the ingredients and you can make the pie at home, but they've done all the work of getting everything together for you and they've made the crust. Or outsourcing might be ordering your turkey from someone else, because the turkey is the messiest part of Thanksgiving, don't you know? And so the past few years I've hosted Thanksgiving at my house and I've had like 27 people, but my mother has cooked the turkey at her home. And so she brings the turkey already sliced. Do you know how much easier it is to cook Thanksgiving dinner when you don't have to make the turkey?
Exactly.
I love that outsourcing part. I've done the pies. That's as far as I've been able to go so far. But
Thanksgiving is easy every year for me. The family only trusts me to bring the veggie tray, so I got the easy job. No.
I'm okay with that.
There's a lot of truth to that,
But you're saving someone the work of having to think about purchasing
Yes.
the vegetables, cutting the vegetables, what kind of dip are you. By you bringing that, you are taking a piece of their burden away. And that no contribution is too small because they all help.
yeah.
So since you're the queen of preparing and feeding your family, right? Do you make everything from scratch?
No. I mean, I use shortcuts here and there. I have a bierock recipe that I make after Easter that has ham in it, and I use canned biscuits. I buy my canned pumpkin. I am not going to be roasting a pumpkin and pureeing it. I am going to go to the short canned pumpkin. I will make my own chicken broth and beef broth, but I'm not above buying it in the box. So it's about balance. There's a time for everything, and there's a time that you want to roast the bones and make your own bone broth, and there's a time where it's fine to buy it in a box. So I don't make everything. My family does eat out on occasion, but I believe in making the intention to eat out. Don't let the drive-through happen to you. Put it on your calendar. If you know you're going to have a crazy day and you know that you're going to be like maybe out working in your yard all day, or you're going to be running kids from one thing to another, and you know that that's a day, then put it on your planner for the week and know that that's okay. And you plan for it, so it's good.
That's great advice. And I imagine that helps with budgets as well, especially when you do have a car that's full of family, you know?
When you start meal planning, there's a few things that happen. Mm-hmm. I believe in weekly meal planning, and that's kind of what I teach at Feed Your Family Tonight. And when you start meal planning, you are going to, first of all, get a lot of brain space, because that feeling of dinner dread is going to be lifted off your shoulders. There was time in my life where my kids were little, and at 4 o'clock or 5, I'd go down to my freezer in my basement and my pantry, and I'd pull out whatever I could get together and get dinner on the table in an hour. But all day I had that dinner dread, knowing I was going to have to do that. By taking 15 minutes at the beginning of the week, you are taking all these little micro decisions and you're putting them into one place, and then your brain is free of it. So my kids will say, "What's for dinner?" And I'll be like, "Look on my phone, it's on my Instagram." And I'll have them look at my meal plan, and because I also put on my meal plan my prep. So if I'm going to have roast beef on Sunday, I put on Friday to take the roast out of the freezer. Or if I'm going to have red beans and rice on Tuesday, I'm going to put on Monday, soak my beans. And so I know that I have everything done so that when I go to 5 o'clock, I have what I need. I can get dinner fixed in an hour. Or if I have to put something earlier in the day, I make a note of that too. And so by planning ahead, it gives you brain space, but then it also helps your budget, because you are only buying the ingredients that you need. You don't have to have a pantry full of every possible ingredient that you might need, which I totally have done. But then you're buying what you need. And here's the kicker, is if you use a grocery pickup or grocery delivery service, you are saving the time in the grocery store too, because you know exactly what you need. You don't need to wander the aisles to be inspired. your list is there. You can write it into the program and someone else can do the shopping for you.
That is one of the things I absolutely love the most. I did that right away. And, I love that I was at the park playing with my grandson and somebody else was shopping for me. I think that is one of the best things that could possibly happen to us with our busy schedules, is having somebody else doing the shopping, and not only doing that, delivering it to my front door. That is just the best.
And I don't think anyone should feel bad about that, because think about it. I have a rule. If I make more money per hour than it would cost to hire something out, so I have Green Chef do my cooking, prep my meals for me, because that would take me forever. So Green Chef does that. We hire someone to come in and mow the lawn. We have a housekeeper. We do it like that, and we don't feel bad about it, because you're actually saving time, and that you could be more productive on your job.
Oh my goodness.
During that time.
And the brain space it gives you is just something I cannot underestimate. When my family decided that we were going to have a housekeeper come on a regular basis, my mother thought I was crazy, and she thought that was just ridiculous. But can I tell you that my husband and my children, everybody has known how much happier I am, because it is not something that I am good at. I am many things, but a good housekeeper is not one of them. And by having someone do that for me, that worry and that guilt that I wasn't living up to my own expectations was lifted, and it was worth it. And I have gained so much more time and money by outsourcing that. And so, no, there's no shame in outsourcing.
I think I'm going to have to take the jump, aren't I?
Yes, you are. When Mama's happy, everybody's happy. You're listening to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. We'll be back in just a few minutes after a word from our sponsors.
The Jump, Pivot, and Roll podcast is brought to you in part by the Shannon Styles Allstate Insurance Agency. Just as you take that next step in life, you need to take that next step in protecting yourself, your car, your home, and your family. Reach out to Shannon at 316-773-9864 or shoot her an email at sstyles@allstate.com. Also by Simplify My Life ICT. Is your life cluttered? Do you need help with organization? Rachel Murphy can help. Check out Rachel's services online at simplifymylifeict.com or reach out to Rachel at simplifymylifeict@gmail.com. To keep up with the Jump, Pivot, and Roll podcast, make sure to follow them on their Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Jump, Pivot, and Roll. There you can find content, podcasts of the show, discussions with Rachel and Shannon, and more. Plus, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on any of your favorite podcasting sites, from iTunes and Spotify, Google Play to TuneIn, and right on their Podbean site at jumppivotandroll.podbean.com. And for all the exclusive content, make sure to become a VIP member on their Patreon site. Just go to patreon.com/Jump, Pivot, and Roll.
Welcome back to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. I'm Shannon Styles.
And I'm Rachel Murphy.
And I am so excited to have Marie Feibach with us today. She is going to make our holidays simple.
So much easier.
Well, that's what it's about. Holidays can be so stressful, and we put a lot of unrealistic expectations on ourselves, and really scaling back and being realistic so that we can enjoy them rather than feel the frenzy.
I love that.
And what I really appreciate about your website is that you're not only thinking about the food, you're thinking about every aspect of the holidays.
That's right. My holiday planning guide gets into cards. It gets into donations. How many times do we have so many organizations asking us for our money at the holiday time? And I want you to think about your budget. I want you to think about being intentional so that you aren't reactively giving. It's about grocery shopping. It's about choosing what activities you want to do with your family. And this year, in the time of coronavirus, I have kind of a coronavirus boot camp in there, because traditions might be changing for you and your family. And they're still so important to create connection, especially with those that you usually gather with, but you can't this year. And so I have tips and tricks for creating connection with family that you can't be with face to face.
Love
So-
that.
Talk to us about the weeks prior to the holidays, when we need to be out and shopping and doing all of these things and preparing. How are we going to keep our family fed and make that system easy for us? What are a couple of tips for that?
Well, one of the big things is to do cook once, eat twice, where whenever you make a meal, if you can, make double of it and freeze it so that you can pull it out for easy meals later. I will make 12 pounds of taco meat because I have a 17-year-old boy and we eat a lot of taco meat. And I will freeze it in meal-sized portions for my family, and I can pull that out. That's actually what my family's having tonight for dinner because I knew today was going to be busy. So I put that on my meal plan so that today would be busy. So that's one thing. The other thing is, especially around Thanksgiving, everybody's so worried about what's happening on Thursday, but you forget that you've got to feed your family on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yes.
And one of my favorite recipes, and it's on my website, is cheeseburger baked potatoes. Because we have potatoes for Thanksgiving already. You bake up the potatoes and you brown up some hamburger and onions together and you put it on top of the potato with cheese and pickles, and if you have some bacon, and you have this cheeseburger baked potato. I really like at the beginning of Thanksgiving week to not serve too much poultry. So to have something vegetarian, have something with beef or pork or fish, because you're going to get a lot of poultry at the end of the week.
Yeah, that's a great
That
tip.
is. So with Feed Your Family tonight, I love that you have this wonderful holiday plan for us, like entire plan for us. But you do a lot more than just holidays. So talk to us about that.
Sure. You know, one of my biggest things is helping families figure out when they're going to eat, not just what they're going to eat. I hear from so many people in different walks of life, their biggest obstacle to eating at home is time.
Yes.
And we all have constraints on our time, but when you take it down and you start looking at the basics of what's happening, and that's kind of the whole principle of how I approach everything in Feed Your Family tonight, is that you have to strip it back to the very basics, is you have to figure out when you're going to eat before you figure out what you're going to eat. So on my weekly meal planning sheet, I say, what are your activities? And for me, with 4 teenagers at home, it's after school activities. But your activities might be what's happening at work. If you have meetings back to back to back and you have no energy, you know that you better have something simple for dinner that night because you're not going to want to be roasting butternut squash. Or if you are a young mom and you have a toddler at home and that's the day you're taking your kid to the doctor and you know they're going to be cranky and clingy the rest of the afternoon, then you better have a meal that's super simple because they're going to be hanging on you all day. So you look at your activities and then you do what I call set a dinner bell. And the dinner bell is the target time that you plan to eat. Now, in my house, that varies from day to day because my teens are all over the place. And sometimes I have the word shift on there because that means there is not a single time where everyone's going to be home. Once you know when you're going to eat and what your day is like, then you can plan what you're going to eat around your energy levels and your activities that day. So let me give you an example. I've had days where my girls have had soccer 3:45 to 4:45 piano, soccer 5 to 6, and I have to be at a PTO meeting at 7. My dinner bell is at 6:15 the minute we walk in the door from soccer practice, and I have to have something in my slow cooker or my oven that I can pull out and we can eat immediately. But 2 or 3 days later, I have 30 minutes where I can actually stand at the stove and fix a stir fry. And so I plan my meals according to what our activities are like. And that is how you can be more successful. Because if you plan a stir fry on the soccer night, you are not going to make it. You're going to be hassled and you're going to be cranky and your kids are going to feel the stress. But a couple days later, it's no big deal. So you plan your meals around your activities. And then there's 2 things that are magic. You write your prep on the day you need to do it. So if I'm having roast chicken, I'm actually prepping my chickens the day before. I'm getting them all covered in the salt and the spices. I'm putting them in the refrigerator. And then I just slip them out when I take my kids to soccer practice, put it in the oven. When I get home from soccer practice, I have roast chicken and we're ready to eat dinner. The other thing is always have a backup. And I define a backup meal as anything that you can get on the table in 20 minutes or less with ingredients you always have in your house. Because there are going to be days where the wheels fall off.
Right.
Everybody has days where your plans change for one reason or another. And instead of hitting the drive-thru, which is going to take you at least 20 minutes, you can make breakfast for dinner if you've got a pancake mix and a dozen eggs. You can make bean and cheese quesadillas if you keep tortillas and a can of beans and a bag of shredded cheese. These are things that I always keep because there is going to be a day when you're going to need a backup. And you need to have those ingredients in your house now because by the time you need the backup, it's too late.
That's brilliant.
So how do you handle, what would you recommend with, you say you have teenagers, and so maybe everyone isn't going to be home at the same time, and your husband will be eating really late, your daughter will be eating earlier than your other kids. How do you handle that? What type of meal would you do for that?
There's two ways you can go. The first way is if you have something in the oven or the slow cooker that people can just individually scoop out their servings when they are home. The other way is something that my friend Shannon does. She had a kid that was in football, a kid who was in competitive dance, a kid who played every sport known to man. She made dinner at 10 in the morning. She would drop her kids off at school, go to the gym, and come home and fix dinner and put everything in individual portions in the refrigerator. And whenever that person was home, she pulled it out. They reheated it. They always had someone sitting with them, so no one ever ate alone, but you ate when you were home.
I love
Wow.
that. That's awesome.
That is, I love because I am a bit of a planner. And when my kids were at home, I used to do the menus. I did that. But I never, ever, and I would read the books and I'd even do the freezer meals, right? Like where you cook for the entire month in like an entire day. I did that because we had 4 and we were busy lives. But not one book ever said, look at your schedule and plan out your meals that way. They said, what will your kids eat? Let your kids choose this meal. Let your kids choose that meal. So I swear that is the best tip ever because it's the game changer, isn't it? It is literally the game changer.
Well, it is. And the other thing is when, you're doing those meals where you're following someone else's meal plan, I will say that what my family's going to eat is not what your family's going to eat. And if you're following someone else's meal plan, there's going to be something in the technique, or there's going to be some ingredient, or there's going to be some allergy, and you're going to have to adapt it anyway. And I want my system to be something that works for you. It's not one size fits all. It's about making dinner work for your reality because we all are so busy and our realities are different. And so I can't give you a cut and dry meal plan. You have to figure out what's going to work for your family.
That's great. That's great. Do you not just feel like we're going to walk away having so much more control over? She might start cooking.
Well,
she might start cooking.
My little brain's sitting here going, can I sit down and plan it? And we'll see. Maybe we should do a follow-up to this.
There you go.
Did Shannon actually cook?
The challenge.
So I want to know, on your podcast, do you have, or Feed Your Family Tonight on YouTube, do you take it to the beginners also? Do you have sections for beginners? Like when you're talking about, and I'm going to be really transparent here. When you're talking about, you have to take it out of the freezer and I wouldn't know how long it needs to be taken out. I wouldn't have a clue.
Especially like for Thanksgiving. I mean, if your turkey isn't in your refrigerator by Friday or Saturday before Thanksgiving, you better be looking at Plan B. But no, I will do deep dives into ingredients. I will do deep dives into techniques. I recently had a podcast that was a deep dive into soup, and I openly admitted that my family is not a big fan of soup, which kind of makes me really sad. And for a while, I felt really guilty that I couldn't get my family to eat this budget-friendly meal. But I've learned how to adapt it by adding lots of carbs and lots of meat. And I've gotten my family to tolerate eating soup a little bit better. So, Feed Your Family Tonight is for someone who is really deep into cooking, and it's also for a person who's just trying to get one step ahead. and getting the very beginning, because I really believe that families that can sit down and spend a little bit more time together at the table are going to recapture a little calm in the crazy. The research is clear that if you eat together a little bit as a family, and I'm not saying every meal because that is not practical,
Right.
and it might not be dinner, it might be breakfast or lunch, but if you have family meals, your outcomes for your children are statistically way better. Higher grades, less drug use, less depression, less suicide. All of these things happen because your kids are creating connection with you.
Love that. I love that you're looking at the bigger picture. Like, yes, you want to make life easier for, let's admit it, mostly moms, right? Because we're usually the ones doing the cooking and the cleaning. But I love that you're looking at how what you're doing is strengthening the family and the unit. And you're literally looking at the big, big picture.
So when I was growing up, my mother she did the best she could. She was a food service director, and she worked, single mother, so she worked all the time. As a matter of fact, one of her jobs, she worked for Kimber Military School and College, so she had to be there in the morning to feed breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then there was a snack shop she had to make sure was going in the middle of the night. So she was always working. And we never really got that sit down and have those family moments, unless it was the big family, the holidays, right? So how long would it take to actually have, maybe 2 or 3 times a week? How long does it even take to have a family meal? I mean, it's a silly question, but I don't know.
Silly.
It doesn't have to take long. I mean, again, we've talked about outsourcing before, and maybe that's the time that you are hitting the drive-thru because you're busy, or maybe it's a bowl of cereal at breakfast, and you've got 20 minutes just sitting and getting ready for the day. And here's the thing is, again, my teenagers, last Sunday at breakfast, we ate breakfast, and we got into a really deep conversation about some really tender topics with my kids. And it doesn't happen every time. But because we are having regular family meals, I have built the trust with them. And when the tender topic came up, they knew that the family dinner table was a safe place. And this was Sunday brunch. But we sat at the table for about 45 minutes and really had deep discussions with my teenagers. And that was only possible because I had laid the foundation of creating connection. And I'm telling you, sometimes our family meals are like, get your elbows off the table, chew with your mouth closed. That is not how you eat soup. You will lose your job if you eat like that at a job interview. I am not saying that our family meals are like idealistic, because 90% of the time they are not. But that 10% of the time that you get when you have those deep conversations is possible because of the chaos in the 90%.
Love that. When we had our 4, and I was pretty good about the meal because I felt the same way that you do, we always did best and worst stuff. Because when you have teenagers and you have moody teenagers, they, how was school? Fine. What'd you do today? Nothing. But then when we did best and worst, they actually had to use more than one word or 2 words. And I could get a little glimpse into what was going on with them, and they could get a little glimpse into what was going on with us. And truly, when I look back now, being an empty nester, around the family table and laughing, and, those are some of the memories that warm me the most, because we took that time. And Shannon, sometimes it was a 15-minute meal. I mean, that's all it was. But in that time, I was able to get more than a fine or a nothing.
Yeah, and that's how when Parker and when I raised Parker, it was usually a 15-minute meal, and it was cereal, but I fed him.
And you know what? And that's it. You fed them, and that is enough.
Yeah.
And we eat a family dinner at my parents' house about once a week, where my sister and her children and my husband and I and our children go to my parents' house. And my mother has started this tradition where she asked everybody around the table, what is something that has brought you joy this week, or how have you brought joy to someone else? And my moody teenagers know that they're going to get asked that question, and it causes them throughout the week to think about the little moments of joy that they are bringing or others have brought to them.
Love that.
Where focus goes, energy flows, and you'll get more of it. What a way to be! What a way to be have gratitude and be grateful, and a great time for Thanksgiving too.
Oh yeah, that would be a good tradition.
Yeah, so focus on joy this Thanksgiving because it's different than happiness.
So every week, Rachel gives a challenge to our listeners.
I do, and Shannon keeps stealing this from me.
Well, you don't get to do it when we have a guest. That's their opportunity.
No, but I was getting ready to ask her that.
Oh, well, you go for it.
So, like Shannon said, every week I do love to give our listeners a challenge. And this week, I want you to give them that challenge. I want you one thing that you feel like they can do that is really going to make that difference.
Okay, the challenge to the listeners is I want you to talk with your family and ask them the two most important things for them in the holidays, because then you can know what's most important to your family, and it gives you the opportunity to let go of the things that are less important.
God, that was beautiful.
It's great because maybe it's not even the food.
It
might not be the food, right? So you don't have to slave over that stove all day long, and you can actually enjoy spending time together.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for being on here. You make it seem so easy, and I'm going to try. And I'm going to take it one step further, though. Talk to just real quick for the individuals like my husband and I, who that's all it is. We're empty nesters. What do you recommend to us?
Well, one of the best things that when I talk with empty nesters is that they find that it's so hard to just cook for two when they've been used to cooking for a family. I recommend empty nesters pick 1 or 2 proteins at the beginning of the week and cook enough of that and then repurpose the proteins throughout the week so you have variety with much less work. So let me give you an example. Maybe you roast 2 or 3 chicken breasts at the beginning of the week and you put part of it on a chicken salad and you put part of it in a chicken quesadilla and you turn the last of it into a chicken noodle soup. And you've already got the protein cooked. You could do it with beans if you're vegetarian, and you could have beans on your salad, beans in your soup, beans in your quesadilla. Put it on top of a baked potato, kind of like those cheeseburger baked potatoes I said earlier. But then you have variety, but you've cut down on your work. So that's my big tip for empty nesters.
Oh, that's a good one.
Marie, thank you for your time and for all of your knowledge here, for sharing with our listeners. We truly appreciate it. Tell the listeners one more time, where can they find you?
Sure. I'm at feedyourfamilytonight.com. And if you're looking at that holiday planner, it's feedyourfamilytonight.com/holiday. But everything's there at the website.
Life doesn't always come with directions. Sometimes you have to jump, pivot, and roll. If you heard something that you liked here today, or maybe you just think that there's somebody out there, one of your friends and family, that could take that information and it would make their life easier, please share this out. Like and share it. And thank you so much for listening. We hope that you have happy holidays.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Marie.